Hey guys, back in last Epoch with a new build. So this is in 0.92 and we're playing this Spark Charge Sorcerer with Fractured Crown. So Fractured Crown is basically, this gives you damage dealt to mana before health, so it acts as another damage reduction layer to your health. And it is pretty good in reducing damage, but due to some changes or fixes that happened in 0.92, the item kind of fell out of use because it was pretty much impossible to sustain the mana drain. So before, the way the item worked is your endurance would also apply to the amount of mana drained as well as your health, right? So it basically meant that you weren't really draining that much mana, but now that's not really the case, and endurance only applies to the health part, it doesn't apply to the mana. So you're going to be draining quite a lot more mana than before, and it makes actually sustaining the Fractured Crown pretty much impossible for most builds. So why do Fractured Crown isn't even good? So I think we should probably go over this first because it's probably why a lot of you are looking at this video. And let's go quickly take a look at some EHP calculations. Okay, so this is on Tunk Lab. I did a quick EHP calculation for my character with the current stats, and you can see our average EHP is about 18,000. So this is with Flame Ward up. If we take Flame Ward off, we're about at 12,000. And EHP versus dots is pretty nice. EHP versus one shots the same as our EHP. So on average, you know, about 12 to 18k, right? So that's with 48% damage taken from mana for life. So the cool thing about this is if we actually say it's pretty easy to get to 70. If we go to 70, then you can see it's 31,000. If we go to 80, 47,000. Once you hit 90, it starts getting pretty crazy with the amount of damage reduction and EHP you can achieve, right? But however, it's pretty much impossible to sustain 95% of damage taken to your mana, right? It's just you're not going to be able to recover that much mana, and I've found even 70% to be pretty hard to sustain. So I'd say 50% is going to be 50% mana damage taken from mana before life is sort of what is going to be realistic in the current patch. So is it good, right? Well, you know, compared to a ward build that has, you know, say 10k wards, got some armor and all that kind of stuff, it's probably going to be the same kind of tankiness as that kind of character. You know, 18 let's say, you know, 13 to 18k EHP is pretty achievable for most builds. One of the good things about this build is all of our damage reduction is pretty much going to be applying to dots as well. So EHP versus dots is very nice, pretty high. We're running full endurance basically, and also the damage taken from mana before life also does apply to dots, so you're pretty tanky against dots and that kind of stuff. But it is pretty limiting, and you have to use Mana Strike, or you have to use, if you go Rune Master is another build I was thinking of. If you go Rune Master, then you can use Rune Bolt. Rune Bolt actually does generate a lot more mana than Mana Strike, but so you're pretty limited in the skills you can use, and one of the best ways to actually play this build and get damage is to do a Mana Strike and do a Spark Charge build with Fragment of the Enigma. So, you know, build options are limiting. The gearing is extremely hard for this character. My gear, I've been playing this character for months basically, and I still haven't really gotten best in slot gear pieces, mainly because most of your gear is you need that endurance threshold and endurance on a lot of your gear, and then after that getting your damage stats is going to be, you know, kind of a second thought, right? So first of all, you have to get your endurance gear set, and gearing it is quite a big pain in the ass. So, you know, it might not really be all that great, and probably will have a better time playing just a normal ward based character, right? But that being said, building this character is very fun. Min-maxing it's very fun. It requires very good gear, and it's not the kind of character that's going to be like, you know, done in a week and then move on to the next. You'll be playing this character for months, trying to get the gear, and once you do get very good gear, it's pretty fun to play. Okay, so here's the skills. We're using Mana Strike, Frost Claw, Arcane Ascendance, Enchant Weapon, and Lightning Blast. So our main damage is going to be coming from Mana Strike, Spark Charges, and then our Lightning Blast. We also have Spark Charges coming from Lightning Blast, and Lightning Blast itself is actually doing quite a bit of damage. Frost Claw is doing a little bit, like 6,700, and our Mana Strike actually does deal quite a bit of, a decent amount of damage once we have Enchant Weapon. You can see it's up to 24k DPS. And let's see, so with Mana Strike, I've been like trying out a whole bunch of different trees, and this is the one I sort of settled on before I was going over to Mana Storm, because this also does apply Spark Charges, and it also kind of counts for the Rune Sap, the global spell damage you get. So it basically doubles this, so it becomes, instead of 12% per hit, it's 24 per hit. But I found that it's too hard to sustain the mana drain when you have this, even with all these points here, and then you really aren't going to have enough points to actually invest into the critical mana and then also Rune Sap, right? So basically, if you want to go to this side, you have to get rid of this, and then some points here, and then it's just mana sustain is at this corruption level it wasn't good enough, right? So if you're at 200, 300 corruption, then you could probably go do this, you'll be fine. But if you're doing higher corruption and maybe some harder bosses where you can't dodge all their abilities, you're probably not going to be able to sustain the mana, right? So for now, we just do this. We get the Spark Charges, and then this node's pretty cool too, because we are building a decent amount of mana, so we get a lot of base lightning damage. Celestial Precision, so this gives us all of our crit for Mana Strike, and then we get mana on crit. So this is kind of interesting here, because when we're on full mana, we're always getting mana back, right? But if you take, like say you take 2 big hits and you go down to like 50 mana, it's going to take a while to actually get your mana back, because you're going to lose all of your crit basically. So a little bit of a double-edged sword, and that's why you do want to have a decent sized mana pool, because so just so you can take some more hits, right? Because it's easier to go from 50 to 100, 50% mana to 100% mana than it is to go from 0 to 50, right? So kind of keep that in mind, and having a bigger mana pool is going to help make your gameplay feel a lot smoother with your mana regen. Okay, after that, attack speed. So you probably want to get as much attack speed as possible, because so attack speed basically gives us more Spark Charges, which is the main part of our damage, and it also gives us more procs for our Lightning Claw, which then procs the Lightning Blast, and it also gives us more mana. So the faster you attack, the more mana you get back, right? So attack speed is probably going to be the biggest stat, probably next to intelligence. So it's something to keep in mind. Get attack speed wherever you can. And then we're going to come and make it ranged, right? Because you can't really play a melee Mana Strike. I've tried it. It's not pretty. So definitely just go ranged. And Rune Sap, very nice for getting some increased damage. This can go up to like 200% easily when you're in combat. So pretty good value for just 3 points. Okay, Frost Claw. This is pretty, simple. Frost Claw tree. We're triggering it on melee. Then we have a lot of base crit, so because we need this to crit with our weapon we're using, so cast Lightning Blast on crit with Frost Claw, right? So we want to get as much crit on Frost Claw as possible, and then we're also converting it to lightning, because Sorcerer does have a lot of crit that gets doubled for lightning spells here, right? So Crackling Precision and Arcane Obliteration are all doubled for lightning, right? Oh no, this one only. The Crackling Precision is doubled for lightning, right? So this becomes 160% crit. So converting to lightning is gonna kind of increase your damage. We also do get Lightning Aegis, that's gonna increase this damage. So it is a pretty good idea, I think, to just convert to lightning. All right, so let's go over Lightning Blast next. So Lightning Blast, there's 2 different trees you can do. First one is going up to the Spark Nova. Spark Nova ends up doing about 20,000 DPS. I looked at it in the DPS calculator in the build planner, right, in Last Epoch Tools, and it said it's about 20,000. It's because the Spark Nova does get the damage of Spark Nova does increase by these more damage, and the base crit also gets increased by this, so you can get quite a lot of damage with this. But I am trying this out now with the just going full into the spark charges, and it's been working pretty good. And I think also the Spark Nova doesn't recast, right? So it's only gonna hit once, whereas spark charges have a chance to actually apply 2 or 3 of these per cast, because we are hitting once and then we repeat 2 times. Okay, so Lightning Blast, definitely get Lightning Aegis. It's going to be up quite often, especially if you're using Arcane Ascendance, because we're also proccing Lightning Blast with Arcane Ascendance. And also, so Chain Lightning, you only need 3 points in here, because we are using Convergence, right? So Convergence is going to half the number of chains we have, and all of our chains hit the same target, right? But the nice thing about this is it rounds up. So if you have 3 additional chains, this becomes 1.5, and that gets rounded up to 2. So, and if you have 4 chains, it becomes 2 as well. So there's no real point to go up to 4. It's going to increase your mana cost. Okay, so that's about it for Lightning Blast and Arcane Ascendance. Okay, so Arcane Ascendance, we're coming down to Acuity, so now has a cooldown, doesn't drain our mana. But we can only cast 4 spells, which is totally fine because we're not really casting spells, we're just using Mana Strike. So we can just keep Arcane Ascendance up the whole time. And then we're going over to Superconductor, so we cast Lightning Blast while we're in Arcane Ascendance, which is pretty cool. And then after that, points are kind of do whatever you want. I suggest you get this over here, Chronoclasm, because it's going to give you a more damage multiplier. So you can have 3 slow stacks, right? So that's like, what, 30-something% more damage. And then mana gain on kill distant enemy. This is kind of nice. It's not really like needed. And the rest just goes into increased spell damage. Right, Enchant Weapon. This one is pretty standard, just attack speed, duration, mana cost. And then you can either go into Thundering for more melee lightning damage. You can also go into Conduit, so you get some zap. This does do a decent amount of damage. You can see it's about 5,000 damage per second, almost the same as a Spark Charge. Or you can go into some Leech. So we do have a decent amount of melee damage, so if you want to get more Leech, you can do it this way. And that is sort of the skills. Alright, so let's go over the gear. So gear, you're going to need a Fractured Crown, and the way you make these is pretty simple, but hard to get the items for it. So you need to have a helmet like this. So it needs to be a Celestial helmet, and you need to have a the helmet needs to have mana, and then it also needs to have damage taken from damage dealt to mana before health. So it has to have those affixes, and it has to have a total combined affix tier of 21. So that means you just add all the numbers here together, right? So T6 plus T1 plus T2 plus T4, right? That becomes your total item level or whatever, right? Or I'm not really sure what the name is, but basically that has to be 21. And then once it's 21, you use a rune of creation or ascendance, right? And that'll turn it into a Fractured Crown. So it is pretty hard to make these because you need, first of all, you need to get the 21 item level, and then you also have to have mana and the damage dealt to mana for life, and then it also has to have forging potential remaining so that you can use your rune of ascendance, right? So it is a little bit hard to craft them, but if you do a couple of Temporal Sanctum on the helmet day, get some of these helmets, it is pretty easy. I've made quite a few of them already. Yeah, so that's the helmet. So for the weapon, we're using Daggerous Claw. It is pretty cool. Like this dagger is very nice. It's got spell crit, which you do need for the spark charges, because this catalyst doesn't have any crit on it, right? So we get the crit, then we have chance to cast lightning blast, and then we have resistances and spell crit multi, which is pretty nice, right? Alright, so amulet is, I'm using Strong Mind. I really like this amulet because it does give you a lot of stun avoidance. We don't have a lot of ward and a lot of HP, so you do get stunned a lot, so this kind of helps a bit. Fragment of the Enigma, I guess you do need this for Spark Charge build, right? And for the body armor, I have it on the wrong base, but you do want to have, T6, T7 intelligence, and then you need a +2 mana strike And if you can, try to seal a Flame Ward +1 charge. And then after that, just get use the rest to fill in your resistances and that kind of stuff, right? Because resistances can be a little bit tight because most of our suffixes are on the other gear slots are going to be either endurance or cooldown recovery, right? So you don't really have that many slots to get resistance, and body armor is going to be one of them. All right, so rings, you probably want to get opal rings, right? So these opal rings with cooldown recovery and attributes, and then you want to get for your rings, both your rings, you need exalted endurance threshold and then just normal crafted endurance as the suffixes, and then the prefixes you probably want intelligence and then strength. Strength is going to increase your armor, which is going to be very good for this build. So intelligence, strength, and then endurance. Same thing, both rings should be identical. If you do craft a really good one, consider making a copy of it, right, with the Rune of Creation. And the belt, probably not on this base. You could use the mana base or the armor base. Probably the armor base is going to be better. And then you want exalted endurance threshold and then just normal cooldown recovery speed. And then the prefixes, pretty much they don't matter at all. Okay, so let's go over the gloves. So you need plated gauntlets because these give you endurance on the prefix. And then you want to have exalted attack speed and then intelligence. I have mana on mine, but you probably want intelligence. And then armor shred and endurance threshold. So on your strong mind, these are pretty easy to get with 2 to 3 LP. So what I like to do is I like to get mana on mine because you do need to have mana somewhere, right? So get some mana and then either frailty or armor shred is going to be good. I guess also lightning pen would be good as well, but having frailty is really a pretty nice defensive layer as well. Okay, so for the boots, you want to have I don't know, you could do exalted cooldown recovery. So the main thing you want cooldown recovery for is going to be Enchant Weapon. So mine's at a 9.1 cooldown, and the duration for this is, so it lasts 5 seconds plus 4, so it lasts 9 seconds, right? So basically if you get a one exalted cooldown recovery speed, it's probably going to be on the boots, and then just a normal cooldown recovery speed, that's enough. But if you have 2 opal rings, then you don't need this exalted cooldown recovery speed. You can just get exalted intelligence, probably it's going to be the way to go. And then yeah, just movement speed, and probably if you can get one of the experimental affixes. There's one with frenzy after you teleport. That's going to be really nice if you can get that. And for the relic, so Stormcarved Testament is pretty insane because it gives you like 91 mana, it gives you attunement, which actually gives you more mana than lightning penetration. So overall, extremely good relic to use. Another good option is going to be the Knowledge of an Erased Mage. This one's pretty good as well, but it does also have damage dealt to mana before health, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because if you have too much damage dealt to mana before health, you're not going to be able to sustain the mana drain. So it could be a little bit of a problem, so keep that in mind. But yeah, until you get one of these, definitely just use one of these, because it does give you a +1 to all mage skills, which is pretty handy because this build really does want to have plus skill levels, because every point you get in Mana Strike means more mana regen, more sustain, or more damage, right? Okay, so that is sort of the gear. And let's see, so for the idols, all of our idols are going to be spark charge on melee hit, basically. And then for the prefix, you can either go for increased melee and elemental damage. It's going to increase your Mana Strike damage. And Mana Strike is already doing a decent amount of damage, right? So 24k. And that can go up all the way up to like 40-50k if you do have spare points to put one more point in Mana Spark for this and all that kind of stuff, right? So either you can do that, or another good one is increased area. So increased area is gonna first of all increase your Mana Strike area, so it allows you to hit more targets, which is pretty nice, good quality of life. And then also it will increase your spark charge explosion, which is pretty good too. So I'd say ideally I'd want the area and spark charge for the big ones, and small ones there is mana you can get on the prefix, so probably mana and then apply spark charge on hit. Now for the spark charges, let's see. So you want to get a total combined of 100% from your gear and passive, right? So there is, you get some chance here and you get some chance in your idols, right? And then also we are taking a few points here. So you want your total chance of your idols plus the fragment of Enigma and this passive here to be 100%. And once you go over 100%, you can kind of take points out of here and kind of put them somewhere else, right? So I've put them into Sphere of Protection for some even more, for some more damage reduction, right? So kind of adjust this, what do you call it, Stormblade passive with your gear. So if you don't have idols that have a high spark charge chance, then you might have to put a few more points into this Stormblade passive over here. All right, so let's go over the blessings, I guess, while we're here. So let's see. Start at the bottom. Black Sun, crit multi, ending the storm, lightning shred, Rain of Dragons, all resistances, Spirits of Fire. We get the flat armor. Age of Winter, endurance threshold. And let's see. So let's go over the passives real quick. So for mage, you know, kind of standard. We get the intelligence, we get the mana health, we get the cast speed, attack speed, we get the crit and crit multi. And then we're going to go into Spellblade, and basically these are all kind of filler points up to we get Arcane Shielding, which is really insane, damage reduction layer. And then we go into Fireblood, Vitality. This is also just travel points, right? You could put these points anywhere else. You can go for more flat melee damage if you want, you know, and that kind of stuff. After that, we're going out to the attack speed, and then basically these points over here. And then Sorcerer 2, these are all kind of travel points. We get the intelligence, we get the mana and armor, right? And then, you know, these, you can put 1 point here and get some more points into mana if you want. But yeah, didn't really think I needed it, so get some of the Lightning Pen, Lightning Leech. This is pretty much all the leech we have in our build, and it would be nice to get a little bit more, but as it is, this is what we have. All right, and then we go 1 point into Arcane Avalanche for this amazing defensive layer. And then we just get the crit multi, the crit chance. 1 point in Arcane Insight is enough to have this buff up 100% of the time. It's like pretty much always up, even though it's only a 5% chance. Right, and then Distant Spark. So this is actually quite a lot of damage. It procs like on almost everything, and so you do want to be a little bit far away, and 4 meters is kind of hard to see, but I'm guessing it's somewhere around this area, right? So if you're attacking around like this, it's going to be procking, and that does add quite a lot of damage, and you know, extra armor shred stacks and all that kind of stuff. Then after that, it's kind of, you know, what do you call it? We get the cooldown recovery, we get the more spell damage. And lastly, in Rune Master, we just get some more damage reduction. So that's kind of the passives. All right, so let's do some quick showcases. I had recorded this before, but the footage did get kind of messed up for some reason, so I'm not really sure what happened. So we're just going to record it again, and I'm just going to go do a quick run here. Let's see, what would be a good one? See, we do have some all resistances, deadly, crit, so why don't we just add some fizz damage on there and see how that goes. Shouldn't be that big of a problem. And I think after this one we should have enough to run the actual boss for this area, so we'll go do that. Alright, so gameplay for this character is we're pretty much just going to be using our, what do you call it, Mana Strike, right? So I like to use Arcane Ascendance, but it is sort of optional, right? You could swap this out for Flame Ward, you could go for Flame Dash, or the Rune Master Teleport, if you like that, and that works as well. And I think the more defensive approach is going to be Flame Ward, but so if you want to get some more single target for, say, bosses, then Arcane Ascendance is going to be the way to go. I think it does give you, like, I don't know, close to 150 plus increased spell damage, and then it also does give you more Lightning Blast procs, and about 30% more spell damage. So it is pretty good for, what do you call it, damage, but you know, in Monoliths, there's not really that many situations where you're just gonna like you know, activate your Arcane Ascendance. And, you know, I mean, you can do something like this where you just like activate it while you're attacking, because you're pretty much just standing still when you're attacking, right? So there's some kind of things you can do, but if you don't really want to do that, then just go for Flame Ward, right? I'm pretty used to it, doing, you know, Arcane Ascendance into, you know, whenever I'm just attacking, right? And then you kind of like blink forward, get the next pack and that kind of stuff like that. And you do get haste when you come out of Arcane Ascendance, so it's kind of nice. Alright, so we are nearing the objective. It's, wow, that guy did a lot of damage. Okay, probably blink away from that. And alright, pretty easy. So that's kind of like how gameplay in Echoes looks like. You just kind of run around, Mana Strike, use your Arcane Ascendance if you want. And let's go see what the single target on bosses look like. Hopefully this guy doesn't one-shot me with all the fizz damage he has, but let's start the fight off, Arcane Ascendance, and then I've killed this guy like hundreds of times, so this fight is like, I have the whole thing memorized basically. For this part, just Flame Ward up on the little balls. Then he's going to do his little breath thing. So overall, pretty easy fight, and just kind of face tank it and dodge the breath and you're good to go. Alright. So you can see single target damage is actually pretty decent considering the corruption level we're at. I don't know, it's not like the best, but it is still very decent. All right. Excuse me. All right, so that was pretty easy. See, bossing on this character where, you know, you can pretty much tank most abilities. We don't really have a shade over here. But maybe we have one on another monolith. We can go check. Alright, so I did find a shade. So this is at 200 corruption, so you can kind of see what the single target looks like when we go for if you're playing on the lower corruption, and it's pretty insane. See, so this has Mark for Death, increased movement speed, damage, and glancing blows, so nothing really too crazy. But you know, at this level of corruption, you can pretty much, oh, we can't tank that, I think. Well, I'm not sure, I haven't tried, but see, it's pretty much just wiping this guy out pretty quickly. So 200, 300 corruption, this build is extremely comfortable. But once you start going, you know, 500 plus, it does get a little bit more rippy, and you do have to play around your abilities and kind of dodge boss moves and all that kind of stuff. Alright, so that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think in the comments. You know, if you have any cool tech for these mana stackers. Yeah, so that's going to be it, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.